Can a team that has just dominated Formula One be at a disadvantage because of its own engineers? In 2026, McLaren could be experiencing exactly that scenario, and no one is seeing it coming. Subscribe to continue uploading more of this type of content now, if we continue. McLaren is going through one of the most contradictory moments in its recent history. On paper, their situation seems ideal. They have just won a title in 2024, they lead the championship in 2025, and they have been the only ones to maintain constant evolution without collapsing under the pressure of the FIA, the media, or expectations. But that image of solidity is just the surface of a structure that, internally, is beginning to show invisible cracks. And the origin of these cracks is in a silent enemy, the change in regulations for 2026. The FIA is not only preparing a technical restructuring, it is completely rewriting the DNA of single-seaters. The arrival of active aerodynamics, the reduction in the size of the chassis, the alteration of the balance between the thermal engine and electric energy, and even the redesign of the mobile spoilers, poses a scenario so unprecedented that not even the best simulators can accurately replicate what will happen on the track. In this environment of uncertainty, McLaren's decision to stop the development of its current car early to focus exclusively on 2026 seems risky, even reckless. Because the team has bet its entire future on two pillars, the stability of its technical staff and the collaboration with Mercedes to integrate its new power unit. But those same pillars can collapse if the environment changes faster than the internal reaction capacity. The powertrain package that Mercedes has promised for 2026 is, according to internal reports, extremely compact, designed for a narrower and shorter chassis, forcing a complete reconfiguration of the packaging, mass distribution, and cooling channels. McLaren does not have absolute control over those dimensions. And that is the first big problem. The Woking engineers are working blindly on some key aspects of the 2026 car. Not because they lack talent, but because the final specifications of the engine are not yet completely finalized, nor tested on the track, nor validated in high-demand cycles. This generates a gap between the design theory and the functional reality of the car. It is a risk that manufacturer teams such as Ferrari or Red Bull can mitigate, but that a customer team, by definition, cannot avoid. At the same time, internally, McLaren must live with a growing tension between its two technical worlds. On the one hand, those responsible for the current car that still has to compete and win every weekend. On the other, a secret and increasingly isolated group of engineers dedicated exclusively to the 2026 project, where no margin of error is allowed. That isolation is generating not only operational divisions, but also ideological friction. Some key members of the team doubt that it is viable to maintain a competitive advantage without having early access to the new engine's test bench. Another focus of concern is in the control systems required by the new active aerodynamics. These mobile devices, ailerons, flow channelers, variable torsion axes must operate in coordination with high-precision sensors, real-time artificial intelligence, and predictive software integrated into the FIA control unit. This means a daunting learning curve, even for experienced teams. And McLaren knows that a single desynchronization of these elements could cause not only loss of downforce, but also critical failures when cornering at high speed. Something unacceptable if you want to compete for titles. But the most disturbing thing is that McLaren has chosen silence as a strategy. It has not publicly communicated any detailed hybrid testing plans. It has not revealed whether it has already tested parts of a new aerodynamic system in a wind tunnel, or whether it has validated its CFD model in full Grand Prix simulations. That lack of transparency could be interpreted as caution, or as a sign that things are not going as well as expected. And in this context, the technical leadership of figures like Andrea Stella becomes as vital as it is vulnerable. Because any mistake in the next 6 months could mean the loss of everything gained in the last 2 years. The storm is approaching, and in Woking they know it. They just can't say it out loud yet. McLaren's real battlefield is not on the track. It is in its design offices in the wind tunnels on the simulation screens that project the future of Formula One 2026. And that field is shaking. Literally. Because while the spotlight continues to point to the drivers, the victories, and the championships, is the engineers who are experiencing firsthand the real dimension of the challenge that the new technical regulations represent. And that impact feels like an earthquake. It all starts with a name, Rob Marshall. The star signing, the man who left Red Bull to become the new architect of the McLaren of the future. Its integration was rapid, and its impact immediate, It completely reconfigured the MCL38 suspension, optimized the MCL39's mass distribution, and redefined internal design processes. But the challenge he now faces is on a different scale. Marshall must be able to embed the new Mercedes engine in a shorter, narrower chassis governed by a regulation that penalizes any excess volume, weight, or complexity. In simple terms, designing the most compact and smartest car to come out of Woking in decades without compromising on performance or reliability. Around him, McLaren's technical ecosystem tries to resist. Neil Holdy, Technical Engineering Director, remains the pillar of stability, managing the interface between simulation, CFD, and wind tunnel. Peter Prodromou, Head of Aerodynamics, is leading a silent revolution so that the new active aerodynamics system not only complies with the regulations, but is a tactical advantage in the race. But both face an environment that changes every week. The FIA is still modifying aspects of the 2026 technical regulations. Each change implies new calculations, new simulations, new commitments. And that's starting to wear on engineering teams. But the earthquake is not only technical, it is also human. The most unexpected blow was the disqualification of Will Courtney, one of the most coveted strategists in the paddock, signed from Red Bull to lead tactical race operations. Its incorporation was intended as the key to facing the new competitive environment of 2026, where electrical energy, the temperature of the hybrid system, and the management of the mobile wing will decide results as much as the talent of the pilot. However, Red Bull imposed a garden leave clause that keeps him out of all activity until at least half of next season. That has deeply disorganized the decision ecosystem in Woking. Strategy engineers must now take on tasks that were not originally theirs, managing race simulations on parameters that are not yet fully defined. And they do it without the leader who is going to guide them through the transition. The result is palpable tension. There is a silent fragmentation between departments. The simulation areas are opposite those of mechanical design. Track engineers are pressing to know how the energy of the new hybrid system will be managed in contexts of rain, heat, or low-speed corners. And the answers do not arrive in time, because the simulation still cannot accurately predict the behavior of the aerodynamic flow when the rear wing changes angle in the middle of a fast corner. Furthermore, a silent fear has set in that McLaren, no matter how talented it is, will become a victim of the so-called customer team syndrome. This phenomenon occurs when a team that does not manufacture its own engine must adapt to technical decisions made by third parties. And in the context of 2026, where every millimeter counts, that can be lethal. Formula One engineering is a war of thousands, degrees, grams. But right now, what weighs most on McLaren is uncertainty. Every engineer, from the most veteran to the freshest new talent, works under invisible pressure. Because they know that 2026 won't just be a new season. It will be a complete restart of Formula One. And any mistake today, no matter how minor it may seem, can cost years of advantage tomorrow. The commitment to prioritize the 2026 project makes sense on paper. The change in regulations is the most radical since 2009. Everything changes. Aerodynamics is no longer passive. The spoilers will be mobile. The chassis is reduced. The minimum weight decreases. The distribution of masses is redefined, and hybrid systems assume a new role in the car's performance. In that context, McLaren chose to put aside the fight for immediate points in the final part of 2025 to have more time, resources, and creative freedom in the design of the car of the future. In addition, there is an invisible pressure that is growing. If Ferrari or Mercedes discover the right path sooner and achieve a first functional version of the 2026 car with a technical advantage, McLaren's bet becomes a boomerang. Because while their engineers are tied to the already defined concept, other teams could have room to redesign, adapt, and copy the winning concepts quickly, as happened when Braun GP took advantage of the double diffuser in 2009, while the others could only react. Subscribe to continue uploading more of that content. Now you really think about all this.